Recently, students have asked me why we use would have been. In this video, I'll explain why and how you use would have been. When you use would have been, the verb be is the main verb. Here it is in the simple form, here it is in the past tense, and this is the past participle after would have. After would have been, you can use an adjective such as terrible, or you could use a noun such as the word disaster, but you need an article. A disaster. Or you can use a verb. If you choose a verb, in this case we'll use destroyed, then this becomes the main verb and it's in the passive voice. In these two situations, the main verb is be. Would have been here and here with an adjective or a noun. The main verb is be. Over here, the main verb follows would have been. When asking questions about past possibility, you can begin with what if, and then here after the subject is a verb in the past perfect tense. This is in consideration of a past possibility. Here's my car. What if my car had fallen off a cliff and into the water? To answer that question, you can use would have been. In these two sentences, it represents the situation. It would have been terrible. This is an adjective. Or it would have been a disaster. And this is a noun. But in this sentence, it would have been destroyed. This is the main verb. And now this is in the passive voice. I could also say, I would have been killed. And this is also in the passive voice. The verb kill is in the form of a past participle. Would have been. Often these two words are contracted to would've. Would have becomes would've. This sounds a little bit like of. In fact, sometimes people will spell would have been with would of been, which is not correct. But that's what this contraction sounds like. Would've. And when someone speaks English very quickly, this sounds like woulda, would of, woulda, woulda been. I don't recommend you do that, but you will hear someone say something like this, woulda been, instead of would have been or would have been. This goes for other modal verbs such as should or could, should have been, could have been. In these two sentences, there are contractions. That would have been great. That would have been great. It would have been a good time. It would have been a good time. That would have been great. It would have been a good time. I would have been, and then here is an adjective. I would have been hungry if I had not eaten breakfast earlier. I would have been hungry if I had not eaten breakfast earlier. I would have been hungry, and then here after if is the past perfect tense. It's negative, had not eaten. In this part of the sentence, using the past perfect negative means that I ate. I ate breakfast earlier. However, thinking about a past possibility, I would have been hungry if I had not eaten. She would have been upset. Here is an adjective. If you had arrived late. This did not happen. You arrived on time. You arrived on time. But if you had arrived late, she would have been upset. Notice that the sentence can begin with she would have been, and then this adjective, or begin with if. If you had arrived late, and then you would put a comma, she would have been upset. But you didn't arrive late. You arrived on time, and she was not upset. We would have been done by now if we hadn't wasted so much time. Had not wasted. Here's the contraction, hadn't. In this part of the sentence, done is actually an adjective, not a verb. You could replace done also with finished, and finished is also an adjective in this sentence. Remember that some verbs function as adjectives or as verbs. In this case, the word do, done, is an adjective. Or begin with if and say, if we hadn't wasted so much time, and then there'd be a comma, we would have been done by now. But we did waste a lot of time, and we are not done. In this sentence, would have been is followed by a noun, a disaster. This is a bad situation. It would have been a disaster if we had not prepared ahead of time. This did not happen. Everything was okay because we prepared ahead of time. But if we had not prepared ahead of time, it would have been a disaster. This didn't happen, and this didn't happen. This sentence begins with there. This would be for a situation. In this case, the situation is a fight, and this is a noun. There wouldn't have been a fight if the two men had agreed with each other. Here's the past perfect. These two men did not agree with each other, and there was a fight. There wouldn't have been a fight if the two men had agreed with each other. This is negative. Wouldn't have been. Would not have been, or wouldn't have been. This negative contraction is often used with would. Would not becomes wouldn't. Would have been is often used when talking about occupations that a person did not choose. So in this sentence, I would have been a farmer, this is the occupation, if I had not become a teacher. Or, if I had not become a teacher, comma, I would have been a farmer. You could put any kind of occupation here. I would have been a lawyer. I would have been a doctor. I would have been a farmer. And this quite possibly is true for me because I'm interested in farming. I'm interested in education, but I'm also interested, and I have always been interested in this type of occupation. In this example, after would have been, there's a verb. This is in the form of a past participle, and this is in the passive voice. If she had not worn her seatbelt, comma, she would have been killed in the accident. This is in the passive voice. The verb kill is passive. We have would have and then be and then the past participle. And here begins the situation or the condition if she had not worn her seatbelt. But she did wear her seatbelt. This happened in the past. And she was not killed in the accident. She was not killed because she was wearing her seatbelt. If she had not worn her seatbelt, she would have been killed. Right now, the federal government is shut down because Congress has not agreed on spending. If the government had not shut down, the workers would have been paid. Federal workers are now working without pay. They have not received pay in the last month. This is because the federal government can't agree on a spending plan. If this video helped you, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. You can also go to my free website for English language instruction at EnglishForThePlanet.com.